Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, and welcome to another post-Geekout reaction. This is a very unusual post-Geekout reaction because it's one that I didn't have an opening joke for. I'm not doing this at the last minute because there were no other movies coming out this week for me to review. You are. Shut up. Anywho, today we are talking about Teen Titans, the Judas Contract. Now, I've never actually done one of these for one of these DC animated things. I've done mini reviews for them, and I do have a mini review coming up later this weekend for this film. So if you guys have not already seen this movie, just wait for the mini review, because if you're new to this channel, the post-Geekout reactions aren't reviews. They're not me coming in here and going like beat by beat everything that I want to talk about. They're just my open and honest thoughts about the thing that I just watched, and that does include spoilers. So again, if you have not seen Teen Titans The Judas Contract, or you just don't want to be spoiled on it, make sure that you click off now, come back later this weekend for the mini review. But for everybody else, let's go ahead and get into it. And if I'm going to start by talking about a DC animated film, I have to let everybody out there know my stance on the DC animated films, which is that I think they made a ton of great animated films, and then they kind of turned to crap for a couple years. Yeah, like when Justice League War and especially Son of Batman came out. I never even saw Batman vs. Robin, simply because everybody told me that was even worse than Son of Batman, and I hated Son of Batman. So, yeah, we've now gotten to a point where when I go into the DC animated films, I'm no longer going into them like, oh, I'm sure this will be great. I go into them on a case-by-case basis, because the last one that came out, Justice League Dark, oh, that was pretty darn good. I actually really enjoyed that. I think that the darker, edgier tone that they've been going for with these films, it actually worked in that film. But this is going to the Teen Titans now. I was like, okay, let's see if you screw up that whole dark, edgy tone that you have been trying to establish with these films. And I'll be honest with you, got some complaints, got a couple little complaints here and there. But overall, just getting it out of the way right now, overall, I liked it. I actually think it was pretty darn good. And the main reason why I think it was pretty darn good is that this is a Teen Titans film. This felt like a Teen Titans film. It felt like they captured that spirit, especially of like the Marv Wolfman era, especially the Judas Contract stuff, which was darker. Any of the stuff that had to do with Deathstroke, when it comes to Teen Titans, always is the darker stuff. So I was like, okay, you know what, yeah, if you want to get a little bit edgier in here, fine. But I will just go ahead and stop tiptoeing around it. What I say when I say that I have a problem with them trying to be darker and trying to be edgier, it's not that they're going for a darker tone. It's not that they're going to try and be edgier. It's that every time that they try to be darker and edgier in their animated films recently, it doesn't feel like Under the Red Hood, where it felt like, oh, it's earned and you have established it well. It feels like they're coming in here and just doing it to try and be cool, just to kind of go, look what we can do. Like every single time that someone in this film cursed, it never really felt like something that that person would say. It felt more like someone just stopping to turn to the camera and just go, yeah, we did that. We're allowed to do that in this film. It's like, I get it, dude, just move on. Same thing whenever there was like blood, although there wasn't nearly as much like just overuse of violence and blood in this one as there was in Son of Batman, which was kind of my fear because this whole film has to do with Deathstroke coming back. And the last time we saw him was in Son of Batman, so I was like, oh god. But I do feel like they kind of learned their lesson from that. I do feel like this wasn't nearly as overly edgy as Son of Batman was. Like, they really tapped it down, and towards the end, when it started getting dark, it was like, you know what? Yeah, you're dealing with the stuff with Tara and her whole backstory. It's like, okay, I get it. That actually is appropriate for this. And Deathstroke is toned way down in here. But also he has personality, which I really appreciated, because I hated that in Son of Batman, he was just generic evil guy who wants to take over the League of Shadows. He he might as well have just been Dr. Claw or just any other just random evil villain who wanted to take over the world. There was no personality in Deathstroke in that film. In this one, he has a personality, and he's got the Deathstroke personality. Like, a lot of people who grew up on the Teen Titans cartoon, they kind of forget that Deathstroke, back in the old Marv Wolfman days of the Teen Titans, back during when this story came from, he was just a scumbag. Like, he was just a piece of crap. So in this film, all the little, like, insults he's giving them, like when he says, it's good to have goals, kid. Me? I'm getting waffles after I kill you. It's like, that's a Deathstroke line. Yep, that absolutely fits. Like, this actually felt like Deathstroke to me. And considering that the actor who voiced him, this is probably the last thing he ever did. Very sad note there since he passed away in January. It's like, you know what? This is the last thing that you ever did. At least I'll be able to look at it and go, you know what, the last thing you did was doing a pretty darn good Deathstroke. I gotta tip my hat to you on that one. Way to go. You captured that very well. I will say, just talking about some of the dark and edgy stuff in here, I haven't even gotten to the plot in here. For anybody who has not seen the post-Geekout reaction before, I go all over the place. The reviews go in order. The reviews make sense. Post-Geekout reactions are just stream of consciousness, the video series. So forgive me for this, but just speaking of this, I gotta get this out of the way right now. For anybody who has read the Judas contract, there is something in there that involves Tara and Deathstroke being in a relationship. And it was really disturbing in the comics and felt really awkward and kind of, like I said, disturbing, but I feel like I should specify, not disturbing in the like, oh, this is dark and creepy, disturbing as in the like, why would you do that? Why would you put this in here kind of way? And I kept thinking, well, if they're going to turn this into an animated feature, they're not going to do that. That's not going to be the case. They would definitely not do that. Nope, they did it, and it is indeed creepy all over again. So, yeah, I feel like they could have taken that out of here, and it wouldn't have affected the story at all, and would not have made this as stomach churning. Let's go with that word. Anywho, so, yeah, okay, those are a few of the small complaints I have, but let's get into the good in this, which is that, as I said, this feels like the Teen Titans. It doesn't feel like they're trying really hard to be cool and edgy with the Teen Titans. It's not Teen Titans Go, where they're just really off the walls, bonkers crazy. This is like actual teenage superheroes being on a team, all hanging out together. Like, just the small stuff in here, like Beast Boy constantly like taking photos of themselves. Like, okay, you know, I like that. Or him and Blue Beetle playing foosball. Like, you know, that's it. That's what I want to see. I want to see these characters hanging out with each other. Or like Raven trying to talk to Tara. I was like, you know what? I like that. I like seeing the bonding on this team. That's good. I kind of wish that a couple more members of the team actually lived at the towers, because there came a moment in which he mentions that Garfield has his own house, and I kind of stopped and went, so is it literally just Blue Beetle, Tara, and Raven in this giant, huge T-shaped mansion? Does Damien live there too? I don't know. So yeah, I kind of would have dug it if they were all hanging out there, but that's a super small complaint. Like, get that out here. That doesn't even matter. Although, speaking of each of them having their own place, in here, the fact that you have Dick Grayson asking Starfire to move in with him, I was like, man, that is actually, that's going to go wrong. That's going to go horribly wrong, isn't it? Like, that was my first thought. It's like, oh, this is going to be the setup for something. You're going to get into a fight. You're going to break up because you want to be hard and edgy and dark. No, it's just legitimately two people who love each other, moving in, all the stuff that goes in with that, them packing up the box. Like, this is like really good bonding moments that you're having in here. Like, you totally buy the relationship between Starfire and Nightwing, which you absolutely should. I have always thought they have been one of those underrated couples in comics that never really gets the exposure that they need. I was like, you know what? This is darn good. Way to go. I am really enjoying all the stuff between those two characters, especially all the stuff about how, like, Starfire is now leading the Teen Titans, but Nightwing was the original leader of the Teen Titans. He has more experience being a leader. So the moment he comes in there, he can't help but kind of get back into that groove of being a leader. And everybody around them is just like, yeah, it's Nightwing. Of course we're going to listen to that guy right away. And so, yeah, I really dug that Starfire kind of had a problem with this. But rather than just like holding it in, keeping it in, being a secret until it just kind of erupts, or like it just is a thing throughout all of this, or it causes a wedge to form between them, she has a problem with it. Dick senses that. He says, what's wrong? They have a discussion about, like a couple does, and then Dick goes, you know what? I'm backing off. You're right. It's like, oh my God, that is how couples behave in the real world. This is how adults interact with each other. That was awesome to see. And speaking of couples, I actually really dug seeing, I keep wanting to just call him Garfield, but I feel like I'm calling everybody else by their code name, so I should just do it with him. Beast Boy. I really dug seeing Beast Boy and Tara's interactions, like how she was really standoffish against him, but then eventually he kind of won her over. But he won her over not through just persistence, but actually showing that he's the guy on the team that cared. Like, it really established who he was on the team rather than just being kind of a jokey character. That scene of them on the beach where they kiss for the first time, and then he just like is celebrating it. It's like, you know what? That's actually kind of heart-touching. I really enjoyed seeing that. And I was really worried I wasn't going to get any kind of a connection to Tara in here, because they reveal right off the bat she's betraying them. Like, she reveals immediately, I am betraying the Teen Titans. And I was like, listen, I know that was coming. Everybody else who's read the comics knows that was coming. But, A, you've got people in here who don't have that history with the Titans, who, yeah, they didn't know that was coming, and you put that in there way too soon. But even for the people here who do know that, who do remember all this from the comics or from the old Teen Titans show, they want to establish a connection with these characters, because just because we have a connection to the characters from the comics doesn't mean we're automatically going to have a connection to these characters as they are presented in this film, because these are new interpretations of them, so you still have to kind of win us over all over again. So yeah, they just kind of show her there, and then immediately she betrays them. I was like, you could have like led up to that, make it be a mystery, but no, they just do it immediately. But I still, even after that, was able to get a connection to Tara, which that was my concern. I felt like if they just automatically had her betray them, wouldn't have had a connection to her. But they were able to establish that. A lot of it goes into like her backstory, a lot of like the interactions that she had with Damian, where Damian is like, yeah, listen, I've been in the exact shoes where you've been, which I really enjoyed that, because Tara died long before Damian even came into existence. So that is like an interaction that we never got to have. So that's an interaction they had to create specifically for this film, and it actually works. His comparison to him and Ra's al Ghul is very similar to her interactions between her and Deathstroke, so it lined up pretty darn well. Also, I think all the voice actors in here are pretty darn well. There's only 2 exceptions to that. I honestly didn't really care for the voice actor playing Blue Beetle. I hate saying that because I hate critiquing anybody's acting abilities, because I know that acting is a very hard thing to do, but yeah, he kind of stood out as not really being quite as memorable or dynamic as anybody else on this team. Also, Raven, this is going to be a very weird critique, but I feel like Raven was a little bit flat. I know you're going to say, well, Raven has always been portrayed as being kind of flat and emotionless. Like, yeah, this was like, they would still have personality to them. They would still be able to, provide some character to them. I thought that Raven needed a little bit more personality to her. I thought that she was a little bit overly flat in that character. But again, I didn't think that she was that bad. Blue Beetle is really the only one who I'm like, yeah, dude, I hate criticizing you on this one, but you're not up to the same league as everyone else here. Although I will say Christina Ricci as Tara, wow, she absolutely stole the show on this one. I'm kind of shocked that they got Christina Ricci to be in this, but I really want to applaud her, because she didn't just show up and was like, it's a paycheck, it's some cartoon thing, it's some superhero thing, I don't care. She showed up to work. She showed up there and was like, oh, this has to be an emotional thing? I will get emotional. And it is largely thanks to her that I was really able to care about Tara, especially there towards the end. Towards the end, that is all relying on that actress to really make us care about that character. When she was just breaking down, when she was just overwhelmed with emotions, it's like, yeah, it is up to the actress to make us feel emotional in this scene, and I started to get emotional in that scene. It actually did really make me care for that character. I mean, that moment in which she is just like having the entire area just crumble down on her, like she is just completely collapsing both emotionally, just both internally and externally. Yeah, she sold it. She did a great job on that. So yeah, overall the thing that made me really enjoy this film was just simply the fact that I'm a Teen Titans fan, and this was a Teen Titans film. Like, they captured the feeling of the team coming together. They captured that feeling of the friendship that they had, of the relationships that they formed with each other. Deathstroke, I think they captured pretty darn well. Especially the opening of this film. The opening of this film, in which you see them all actually as teenagers, just out patrolling around, and you see like Kid Flash in there, you see Bumblebee in there, you see, I don't know, was he going by Speedy in this film? I don't remember if they called him Speedy or Arsenal in this, but Speedy in there. Yeah. Every single one of them, just seeing them together, it was perfect. They captured that feeling of the early days of the Teen Titans perfectly in that opening bit. Granted, I have never seen any other Teen Titans short films, but this was the best Teen Titans short film I've ever seen. Just that opening of them going to save Starfire. That was perfect. And also, I love that they threw in the little Easter egg there of having Jericho pop up, and Jericho pops up, and then he just immediately dies. And I was like, why on earth would you do that? Why on earth would you bring Jericho in here and then just have him immediately die? And then at the very end, after the credits, you see him come back to life. I was like, oh, you smart. You smart, DC. You planned this stuff out. That's good. Although I will say that Jericho's in there because he's part of Brother Blood's organization and his whole plan. I will say, this is the Deathstroke film. There is no Brother Blood in this thing. Brother Blood gets souped up on power, he fights them, he's got this whole crazy backstory. None of it matters. Like, that is one kind of small thing I have to, like, kind of take some points off for, is just simply the fact that when Brother Blood actually reappeared in this film, I was like, oh, I forgot you were here. Oh, dude, I'm sorry, I thought this was just Deathstroke taking people out. I totally forgot your whole I'm immortal because I bathed in blood backstory. That's nice, though. Yeah, okay, good for you. Kevin Smith is more memorable in this film than Brother Blood. Although, I gotta say, that's another thing that I kind of have to take some points off on. It's that, not that they had Kevin Smith guest star in here, it's that they had Kevin Smith guest star in here as Kevin Smith, and they stopped the whole movie to go, I'm gonna be on the Kevin Smith podcast. It's Kevin Smith. Like, they made sure to say it like that, and I was like, do you want to, like, just turn to the camera and just go, hey kids, it's Kevin Smith? Because, like, I'm not gonna come in here and, like, say my own, like, personal thoughts on Kevin Smith, whether I like him or I don't like him. But even if I, was a huge, massive fan of him, I would still have to kind of stop and be like, dude, this could not be more of, like, a desperate plea for some nerd cred. Like, you stopping the whole film to go, Kevin Smith, everyone. I was just kind of like, you don't need that. You're the Teen Titans. You're bigger than Kevin Smith. And it really felt like they just kind of wanted to go, hey, all you comic book fans, this is how you know that we're on your side. We got Kevin Smith on this thing. I was like, dude, I don't need that. Like, if you wanted to have Beast Boy get interviewed by somebody, I would say just make up some fake podcaster guy. And then when he goes on the show, have Kevin Smith voice him, so then all the comic book fans out there would be like, oh, I know that voice. That's Kevin Smith. You got Kevin Smith on here to be a podcaster when he's a podcaster. I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. Oh, that's a clever little wink and nod. This wasn't a wink and a nod. This was a screech on the brakes, stop the whole thing, so you can go, Kevin Smith, everybody. Pause for applause. But yeah, so that was just weird. That was just weird how they introduced that. Also, I gotta say, like I said, I love that this is a Teen Titans film. And I know this is a weird thing to say. I love that even though Robin's in here, I love that even though Nightwing's in here, Batman is nowhere to be found. Because I feel like DC, especially in their animated films, have been relying too heavily on Batman. And to me, it kind of like hit that peak in Justice League Dark. It's like, dude, there is no reason for you to be here. At all. You are not part of the Justice League Dark. You are not part of this team. You didn't need the original Justice League to be in here. You didn't need some guy from the Justice League to go over there and find them. You could have had Constantine and Zatanna form this whole team by themselves. You were solely here because you were like, people like Batman. And I just kept sitting here this whole time. I was like, all right, so when does Batman show up? I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen at any moment. He doesn't show up at all. None of the Leaguers do. You know why? Because this is a Teen Titans film, and they went, let the Teen Titans have their own movie. The Teen Titans are fine on their own. That's kind of the whole point in the Teen Titans, is that they're a group of sidekicks who are like, let's go off and do our own thing. This is the movie where they went off and did their own thing. So yeah, I know it's a weird thing to applaud them for, but I'm applauding them for not doing that. So yeah, overall, I do have some problems with it. It still has, a couple of those things that all the DC anime films have been doing recently that I kind of have to wag my finger at them for. But overall, it was a fun film. It did get emotional there towards the end. I did really buy the bond between these characters. I actually really dug the way that these characters were written. Each of them were written completely separately, completely differently. But at the same time, none of them were like stereotypical characters or cartoons. They all kind of felt like real characters. I really do have to applaud them for that. I think that DC has come a really long way over the past couple of years with the way that it writes the, the characteristics of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Characters. You idiot. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, because I know like everybody out there absolutely loved that Suicide Squad film that they did. I gotta be honest with you, it had some cool stuff in there, but I thought that every single character in there was just a cartoon, was just way too exaggerated, even for Suicide Squad. This one here is like, you know what? That shows me that you guys are learning how to write characters. You're doing a great job here, DC. Keep it up. You are definitely improving. So yeah, I would actually really recommend this film. If anybody out there is a Teen Titans fan, I would actually say this is a must-watch. But even if you just kind of enjoy anything DC in general, I think this shows a side of their universe that for a while now they have not been focusing on. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've focused on the Teen Titans before, but they've kind of focused on the Teen Titans being their own separate thing, like they exist in a reality where no other heroes exist, you know, like in their Teen Titans Go cartoon or the Teen Titans cartoon before that. This one actually is the first time that I've ever looked at a Teen Titans thing and gone like, I can see how that works in the rest of their universe. But it doesn't also feel like Young Justice. I feel like I should point that out too, because Young Justice was another time which was like, here's a group of heroes coming together and bonding. It's like, this doesn't feel like Young Justice. Young Justice felt like Young Justice. This feels like Teen Titans. And after you watch this, I think you'll be able to realize what the slight differences between those two things are. But again, thank you guys for watching this. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this. As I said, I've got a Thorgy mini review coming up of this in a couple of days, in which you'll be able to see my spoiler-free thoughts on it. But why do you honestly care about my spoiler-free thoughts? We just had the spoiler discussion. But thank you guys very much. Come back next time. Bye.